Well, good evening. I'm Jim McGinnis. Welcome to my back porch. I hope this finds you well. You know, when I first heard Jimmy Buffett was ill, it really threw me for a loop. I sat around for the longest time just thinking about how big of an impact he's had on me over the past half century. And about 3 months ago, a little story came out of all that thinking, and I ended up sharing a rough draft here online. And little did I know that what September would bring, and little did anybody know, I guess. And there have been so many things written about this man recently, wonderful things that move us both to laughter and to tears, and sometimes both at the same time. I didn't pick up my pen for a couple of weeks, but I figured that this thing should be completed. I owe him that. So I sat down and I did. And here it is, and it's called The Lightness of Jimmy Buffett, September 13th, finished work. Do you happen to know he went to Paris, I asked her, on our first evening walk on the beach together. And before she could say anything, I started singing it to her as we strolled along holding hands. She was 18 and I was 20, and that was our beginning. We didn't know back then how this pirate troubadour would serenade us as we moved through our lives. Now for me, Jimmy Buffett's best work was done without applause. Oh, I loved our tribal gatherings, you know, standing, singing, swaying alongside friends and fellow parrot heads. How many times I can't recall. We were lawn people from way back. But it was those private visits he made to my porch here that touched my heart. Or the times he hitched a ride in my truck as I drove the loop down to Sebastian and back. And there were those nights we sang Little Miss Magic together as my daughter faded off to sleep. Days my little boy was casting his line in the backyard, singing a 4-year-old's version of Volcano. Oh, how I did love the concerts. I remember the first time I heard him cover Southern Cross in Tampa. Jimmy owned it, and I nearly jumped out of the place. It was something. But still, the next day, he was back in the boat with us, cruising through John's Pass toward a sunset. We were breaking in a new album on the boombox. Banana Wind, I believe. On as many road trips as I can remember, each time we crossed the St. Mary's River on our return to Florida, I commemorated the occasion by honking the horn obnoxiously and turning on Buffett. And Jimmy would play us through Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Daytona, and then home. His music accompanied us while floating in the Atlantic, the Gulf, and the intracoastal waterways, through celebrations, vacations, trials and tribulations, and even a wake or two. We've been blessed by many great voices in our lives, but Jimmy holds a special place. Kay and I both are Florida born and bred, and he provides us a saltwater soundtrack, if you will. Blue skies and ultraviolet rays. He broadened my cultural horizons. He taught me about the magic, mystery, and mischief in everyday life, the spirituality and natural beauty, and the liberation of laughter. His lessons on the art of noticing our surroundings picked up where Hemingway and Alice Walker left off. And for half a century, Buffett's music has served as a visceral reminder to live in the world, as Muir said, not just on it. With his words, he takes us with him wherever he goes. From that night in Montana with no room for doubt, to the corner of Walk and Don't Walk, just sipping coffee from Cafe Du Monde. A journey past the Channel Islands out into the cosmos, singing Mother, Mother Ocean from a hymn he taught me at an early age. I've heard, and maybe you have too, Buffett's work described as an escape, but I beg to differ. It's not an escape exactly. He gives our spirits lift when we are too much burdened by troubles, worries, and obligations. He offers us levity when we are mired in our own self-importance, challenging us to try to live happily ever after, every now and then. There is a lightness in even his deepest work. Follow in my wake, he says, and so we do. Now I buzzed the Himalayas and barrel rolled above Hong Kong, followed my song lines past bamboo shacks and shops. I'm going back to Cartagena and Havana and the Keys, of course. I found love in the library with a girl standing in fiction stretched high on bare feet. I learned bits and pieces of Tahitian, Portuguese, and French. Chanson pour les petits enfants. I hopped a freighter, skidded the ocean, and left England without sound. I saw my own barefoot children in the rain, and then watched my grandkids search for hermit crabs along the shore of the Spoils Island. I once bought my daughter steel drums, and she played them. I made a sizable withdrawal from the bank of bad habits, but soon discovered that moderation was in fact the key. A valuable lesson bubbling out of barometer soup. Jimmy was a force that pulled folks together, like my friend said, helping forge friendships that last a lifetime. He offered up literary links in the chain for me. This underread Floridian found a love for Mark Twain, John MacDonald, Pat Conroy, Bruce Chatwin, Carl Hyacin, and Jim Harrison. And of course he inspired my own writing. The stories from my favorite books still take on many different looks, and I'm gone again, home again. I sat upon my porch of indecision, right here, reading, swapping semi-true stories with friends. I grew older but not up. I fell down the bleachers of Alligator Alley during a Jimmy concert. And by the way, that's a whole true story. And I think I got an ovation for it too, you know. And yes, I'm still quietly making noise. I filled a tin cup chalice with good red wine. I did say manana, but didn't mean it. And I spent ragtop days in my trusty Jeep and rusty Bronco. I asked for some palm trees and tales from the South Seas, and sparks flew around my head. I wonder who that is in that plane, huh? I smelled the fragrance on the pillowcase and thought about the girl. I heard the sound of whistle blows in Congo Town. Mailboats in. Mailboats in. Jimmy played here in Melbourne, you know. Yep, on a little field across near Florida Tech with just his six string and Fingers Taylor playing that harmonica. That was a good day. Now, I caught a few big fish with that Knee Deep song playing on the boat, the one he did with Zach Brown. Yeah. And I'm a cultural infidel who has made many a coastal confession, living on things that excite me, be they pastry or lobster or love. I closed my eyes and saw Marilyn Monroe in Beautiful Swimmers. I bet you did too. Shook the hand of the Mango Man as he greets me at the border. I gazed upward each 4th of July, remembering the night I painted the sky. Come Christmas winds, blow all my worries away. My son and daughter know nearly every word of every song. We taught them well. They plowed the sea with me and smoothed the troubled waters. In a simple, sturdy craft we call the Makeritaville, believe it or not. Shells sing, dreams float, life's good on our boat. False echoes soothed me somehow in days after I lost my dad. And I remember driving back with Kay from Gainesville on a blue Sunday afternoon after visiting her mom in the hospital. She just stared straight ahead and said nothing. And I was smart enough not to offer any words of wisdom. After a long while, I turned on the stereo and Fruitcakes came on unexpectedly. And as I went to change the song, I saw that there was a hint of smile on her face to go with all those cheers. There was that unfathomable lightness. I let it play. So maybe I didn't realize how mightily Buffett contributed to the weaving of the fabric of my worldview. Maybe I didn't fully appreciate how his work permeates through me. Whether I'm heading offshore with my son, or sitting on a mountain in North Carolina, or back on that porch, this porch, with dogs and grandkids. I reckon that connection will not change, for me or for so many others. Thanks, Jimmy. Well, it's time for siesta. I have a belly full of rice and beans and an ear full of Patsy Cline. But now you're incommunicado, leaving such a hole in a world that believed that a life of such bravado was taken the right way home. And my hair is stone gray, at least my beard. And I can see the day when I finally disappear. But as you taught us, there's still so much to be done. We've got some more happily ever aftering to do. And thank you for those lessons, Jimmy. And so much more. Fins up. Fair winds.